Welcome viewers, this is Media Track, the news analysis program where we look at the stories of the past week and try to analyze them for you. With me is Ashley Rosario, my media colleague and a working journalist. In fact, I am a sort of retired journalist. I'm not on the ground, I do write a few columns, but Ashley is very actively involved. So, just to sort of get away from the usual way that we start the program by looking at the news, I'm just going to look at some really great headlines that I've seen in this past week. You know, writing headlines is an art and it's an editorial art, and one is constantly challenged to produce the great headline that will attract the reader's attention, especially if you're working in the print media or in the web media. So the really outstanding one I saw this last week was in The Economist. Now, just before we started the program, Ashley and I were discussing about how they've gone back to work at his newspaper, The Goan, and which, of course, they were offline, working offline, all these online rather, but
from home. Off the office.
Off the office. And so Ashley was just mentioning that they are back almost to normal, not entirely fully functional. But anyway, so to come back to that thing, the great headline that I saw in The Economist was working life has entered a new era. So the headline says, farewell BC before coronavirus. Welcome AD after domestication. I thought that was quite brilliant. And the next headline talks about, says it all. Travel after COVID-19, something that everybody is wondering, what is it going to be like now to get back into the travel mode? How will we take an aeroplane? Will there be a lot of social distancing? Etc. So the headline says, travel after COVID-19, and then that's the strapline, and it says, lonely planet, tourists are locked down at home, what awaits them when they re-emerge? So I thought that was another great headline, lonely planet, because well, in Goa it's not as lonely. As we've seen, a lot of people have been trying to come here. And on that note, I will move on to the tourism story. Now, Ashley, if you look at, there was this story in the Herald that was, I thought, quite caught my eye. It was there 2 days ago on, say, on the 26th of this month. And it talked about starred hotels in North Goa's coastal belt is still allowing backdoor entry for tourists. And on Friday, the government confirmed that their story was right. The tourism department admits hotels were accepting online bookings, and directions have been issued to hotels and guest houses to stop. Now, this is actually a complete violation of the rules, and it sort of confirms these suspicions that a lot of people have been trying to get into Goa, because it is, of course, still seen as a green zone, and they're coming more as tourists than rather people who are coming back home. So what sense have you been getting on the ground of...
I don't think the scale is alarming.
Yeah.
For the simple reason is human nature.
Yeah.
In these uncertain times, no one would be of the idea of going to a holiday or to as a tourist anyway, because you're not sure what is the ground reality in the state that you're going to.
Yeah.
Plus, moving from one state to the other, there are a whole load of SOPs that you have to follow. For example, now for the last 2 days, Goa has changed the SOPs for people coming from outside and said test compulsory.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's right.
So I don't think the scale of people coming into Goa as tourists is very alarming. Although, as you know, every rule has people breaking it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there will be a few people here and there, trying to use their influence and break the law
Yeah.
or duck the law,
Yeah.
pushing their influence. And
Yeah, but I saw this story actually in your paper, and it quotes Babu Asgaonkar,
Yeah.
who says that Goa is not in a hurry to restart
start.
tourism.
Yeah.
And then there was also this huge number he gave. Claims that 90 lakh tourists
That's in
is the
2000
figure we were getting. That is in
2019.
2019.
Yeah, but I
And,
don't know. I myself filed that story yesterday based on his press conference.
Yeah.
He quotes a KPMG report.
Right.
Okay, now how KPMG has come to that figure, there is
Yeah.
no idea of all that.
Yeah.
Whether it is the actual bookings in hotels for the year 2019 or not, that
Yeah.
no one knows.
Yeah.
He says that 90 lakh stayed in hotels registered with the tourism department.
Yeah.
That's what he says.
Out of the 90 lakh, 10 lakh were foreigners, is
Yeah.
what he says.
Yeah.
But there is also another report I'm looking at here. If you recall, there was a report which even questioned the Goa government's thing and said that we are getting far more than those figures. We are in fact getting 1.6 crore, was it?
Yeah, 1.6 crore. That's
Yeah.
the same figure
Yeah.
Asgaonkar quoted.
1.6 crore.
Yeah,
is
which
that
is
a
10
correct
times the
figure?
population of Goa, 10 times the census population of
Times
Goa.
the population
So,
of
so
Goa.
basically, I believe the number could be higher because if you notice, Devika, in the last 4-5 years, a lot of people are leasing out their homes,
Yes.
half of their homes,
Yes.
especially in these coastal villages,
That's true.
to tourists.
Yeah.
So, and there is no account of that.
Yeah.
There is
Now
no account of
the
that.
thing actually is, you recall last year there was a big press conference of the tourism, TTAG, Tourism and Travel Association of Goa, and they have their annual conference,
Yeah.
and they throw these figures at you, and there is always this acrimony between them and the government because they are not getting their tax cuts or whatever it
Yeah.
is they want. Even now, everyone's going around with this begging bowl. They know less. But I recall asking them this specifically, and off the record they told me that the figures are inflated by at least 30% by the Goa government. You see, the trend has been to advertise this as an ever growing
tourism hotspot. Yeah.
hotspot. And it has become a
It
hotspot
has,
for
it
us,
has.
for people who
Live
live
here.
here with these kind of numbers. Now, I suppose the one way to actually find out, I'm told that in fact they could, if they stuck to, it's the people who fly in that give you the correct picture.
Yeah.
It's the
yeah.
people who come by road.
And by trains that you don't get the correct picture.
By trains and by buses,
Buses,
also. So a lot of people who actually live in Goa and travel constantly for business or whatever by bus, keep crossing the border, they are also added as tourists.
Yeah.
So one doesn't know, but last year I was particularly struck by the far lesser numbers I saw in the winter time, that is the Christmas
time.
season, where it is practically impossible to get to Kalangut.
Yeah.
So if you were driving from Panjim to Kalangut, it was much less.
Less.
But say a year, 2 years before that, it was absolute chaos. So are we looking to get these kind of figures? Do we want them? Do we have the accommodation? Where are we headed? That's the question.
The problem is Goa's tourism has just happened. No one has planned it.
Yeah.
It just happened. Like for example, it is shocking to know the number of starred hotels that we have in Goa. Okay.
Yeah.
And I don't think that they are having any kind of occupancy that is above average, where they will be making good money.
Yeah.
For instance, in the last 3-4 years, there have been a lot of distress sales of these 5-star and 3-star hotels.
Exactly. In fact, there's a distress sale of one with the most well-known landmark hotel in Panjim.
Mandavi, yeah.
Yes, at least so we are told.
So I don't know whether there is any sort of long-term planning happening in the tourism sector in Goa, or is just happening.
Yeah.
For example, there is I have seen a major shift in the type of tourism that happens in Goa in the last 5-6 years.
Yeah.
Earlier, you had these low-income, European tourists coming here,
Yeah. Yeah.
trying to escape their winters there and live here at, for 3 months, 4 months, 5 months. That is not happening anymore. That is not happening anymore. The foreign tourist is declining, and we have a much higher level of domestic tourists coming in.
That is a good, I mean, that's the fact.
Yeah.
Absolutely. If you
Yeah.
look at the people on the streets, etc.,
Exactly.
during the tourist,
Exactly.
we are just totally inundated with domestic tourists. So how do we handle that is going to be a real challenge in the future.
The strategy that successive Goan governments have taken is just hire.
Let it happen.
Let it happen.
Let
one,
it happen
and
has been
second
their
is just
strategy.
show that you're making an effort by appointing some
Consultant.
KPMG as a
Exactly.
consultant or
Exactly.
somebody else as a consultant, and the actual stakeholder is never taken into account, because almost the entire coast of Goa has been overrun by tourism.
Absolutely.
And people who are not involved in the tourism business are facing the brunt.
Exactly.
Like fishing community, for example.
Yeah.
In the coastal belt, they are totally overrun by the tourism activity on the beaches.
Totally. Absolutely.
So I think some sort of intervention has to happen very soon. Otherwise, you have those numbers coming in again and again, the same problems.
Yeah. So now to move away from tourism to the, to a little sort of lighter story of, the chief minister and his gang of cabinet members trying to inaugurate, what was it? Actually, it was a road divider.
No, it's actually that they call it a road divider, but it's
okay.
actually this, kind of a flyover bridge from the airport.
Okay, so it was in Daboli.
Daboli, yeah.
And the photograph says it all. It was in the front page of your paper, where there were like, from the picture which we are putting up for you, there were like, I would think about 70 people trying to cram into the frame of this photograph. And all of them, you see, wearing their masks, but they forgot all about the physical distancing, which they themselves, preach so much about. And then the very next day, the chief minister had to do another inauguration, this time of a ferry from Diwar, a new ferry. And so he chose to, make a big show of the social distancing, but they forgot to stand on the right side. They stood inside the ferry and they inaugurated it from the inside for the photograph outside. It was pretty amusing. And so they got a lot of flack. Forget about from your newspaper, there were a huge amount of flack on social media, and there were 2-3 people actually who filed a case against the chief minister.
Goensa Awaz is
they filed an FIR.
Yeah.
And so the police was put in this, absolutely embarrassing situation where some journalists went and asked some, senior policemen, what do you think about the government violating the norms of the lockdown? Well, if it was probably in the UK where there is all this huge debate, that Boris Johnson has allowed his cabinet member or whatever to travel during the lockdown with his child who is positive. But here, they violate it in huge numbers. And absolutely nothing happens. They just become the butt of a joke. Then there was this other headline that I found very, very interesting. It talked about train service resumptions saw 850% rise in coronavirus cases in Goa. Now, obviously, this had to do with the chief minister's flip-flop. First, they said that people would be allowed to come in,
Not really. It's something that is happening all over India.
Okay.
See, the problem is trains have started. Some skeletal trains have started, and those trains to transport the migrant labor back to their villages.
Yeah.
Those Shrama Shakti trains. So, movement of people, this is something that has been done by the central government, by the MHA.
Yeah.
I don't think state governments had much say in it. A lot of chief ministers are complaining about it.
Yeah.
For example, yesterday I saw Soren, the chief minister of Jharkhand, bitterly complaining in an interview to Hindu,
Yeah.
where he said that it is the center's strategy that
Yeah.
has caused such a spike of cases.
Yeah.
First not allowing migrants to come,
Yeah.
and then suddenly allowing them without consulting states
Yeah.
about the arrangements or whatever. So Jharkhand, some of these states in the north are facing the brunt of these migrant labor returning home.
Yeah.
First of all, they have this huge number of people returning back,
Yeah.
and second is the infection coming into their state.
Yeah, that's right.
So they're facing a double problem.
Yeah,
Many of the
but we
states.
had this
In-
strange decision where the government decided to relax the rules
Yeah.
and allow people to opt for the test or to just opt for
Home
14-day home quarantine,
quarantine.
which was obviously not going to happen. So it took one day's criticism to make the government go back. And so now it is mandatory to
do a test, yeah. It's
to
mandatory.
come
Or to come with a negative test.
with a COVID
Negative
clear
test which is less than 48 hours from the time you land and go.
Okay, so is that going to make things better for us? How?
Yeah, but this is the strategy that so far has been adopted in India,
Yeah.
kind of prevent the infection from coming in.
Yeah.
But how long are you going to do that? I mean,
Well,
it cannot be perpetually the strategy where you prevent people from coming in, or prevent the infection from coming in. The infection will come in because,
No,
for
the
example,
infection will come in,
Yeah.
but what are the precautions people are taking?
exactly,
Because are they wearing the
exactly.
mask?
That is
are they
where
standing away?
that is where I see no intervention from the government.
Absolutely, you are
Absolutely
completely
not.
right.
Yeah.
Whenever I go to a shop, there will be about 15-20 people crowded in. There are
Yes.
15-20 people crowded at the counter itself.
Exactly. So,
I mean, it's amazing.
so that next stage is what the government needs to concentrate on. They have to educate the mass
Yeah.
population about how to live with COVID.
Yeah.
Because
So,
infection is going to come in,
actually,
whatever
now-
strategy you adopt.
Now Michael Lobo is talking about opening restaurants from June 1.
Not just Michael
Now,
Lobo,
how
I'm
does
shocked.
that happen? How
I'm
does
shocked.
That happen?
Not just Michael Lobo. Yesterday, the Goa Chamber of Commerce and Industry has officially written to the Chief Minister the
Okay.
same thing.
Open the restaurant.
Open the restaurants,
And
open
how
the
do
bars.
they expect them to function?
They just put a line at the bottom saying with strict social distancing.
Yeah.
I mean, how can you ensure strict
Yeah.
social distancing
Yeah.
in a bar and restaurant
Yeah.
for all you
Yeah.
care?
Yeah.
So I don't know. And today the Chief Minister has made a statement in one of these local TV channels
Yeah.
where he says that I had a telephonic conversation with Amit Shah
Yeah.
today, and I believe the lockdown is going to be extended for another 15 days. This is what
Yes.
the Chief Minister has
Yes,
said today.
that's right.
And he says that I have asked the Home Minister to permit spas, bars and restaurants, hotels and eateries. I mean,
I know, they just don't know how
They
to
don't
go
know how to
about
go
it.
about
They're
this
just
whole thing,
flailing
yeah.
in the dark, literally. Well, now to move to this, little controversy that erupted over the board, Goa board,
English
question,
paper.
English paper. And the question apparently was, to work out the grammar of the sentence, which said that the reason
the verbs, yeah. The
Goans
verbs
go out
out.
is because there are no jobs. They take the Portuguese passport and they go out because there is no work here, and it has raised heckles, and everybody is in sort of wanting to find these two people and catch hold of them, whoever set the question papers. Now, what is the situation right now in that? Who were the people who set these papers?
No, but that is something that is not revealed, because for the simple reason that if it is revealed in advance who sets the papers,
Yeah.
then the chances are of the paper getting leaked. So,
Okay.
so the board follows this very complicated procedure where 4 sets of papers are set
Okay.
by 4 different people. Then you have a committee above them that will, you know, kind of pick and choose which
Yeah.
papers, and finally one of the papers gets released as the actual paper. But the identity of the paper setters can never be found out.
I see.
Can never be found
Well,
out.
you know, the question was extremely
I don't think
amusing.
there's anything wrong in that question.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So, it says here the particular paper presents a discussion between 2 friends, and he asks the question is, what are one of the friends says, what are your future plans, my friend? Says one, Raisin, and to Kedan, and Kedan says, I have applied for a Portuguese passport and there are few job opportunities in Goa. So then he says, you have taken the right decision. Without influence and money, it is very difficult for Goans to get jobs in Goa. I mean, he's stating a fact. An absolute fact. And then there was another question which, you know, must have obviously annoyed the political class, because it said, furthermore, an earlier question said corruption has affected Goans in Goa, asking the students to change the voice in the sentence. Now that is quite amusing. I can imagine how it must have...
Basically, I don't understand how the government has a role in this in the first place, because education is outside the purview. It's the Goa Board of Education is a completely autonomous body. I remember a similar controversy cropping up somewhere 25-30 years back when Dr. Suresh Amunkar, who passed away recently, was the chairman of the board, and Pratap Singh Rane was the chief minister. And a similar controversy, kind of a political controversy, came up in a question paper. And Rane sent a fiat to the board chairman, and the board chairman said, I'm not answerable to you. I am not answerable to you. My board is an autonomous body. What we set is set by a whole, you know, committee of academicians who sit and do their job. So I don't know how the government of late, of the last say 7, 10, 15 years, the involvement of the government in the board has increased so much, which doesn't augur too well for education, according to me, because government means politician. It's not just government, you know, it's the overriding influence of the politician and the political executive on the government that has begun to interfere in the board's actions.
Well, the other, you know, smaller story that sort of caught my eye was this ODP for Ponda and Margaon likely to be open for changes. Now, what struck me as a reader, because I have not really been following it on the ground, how many times do they open up these ODPs?
Every time.
Doesn't it end at some stage?
Every time a new politician takes over one of these PDAs, he decides to change the ODP. I mean, I find it strange myself. But, you know, what struck me, Devika, is during this lockdown, some of these, you know, real estate involved politicians have gone about their job of doing all the illegalities.
Very busy.
Yes,
They've been
so
extremely busy.
there was this case 3 days ago in Talegaon, I think we published it
Yes.
today in our newspaper, where a set of locals who are, you know, over the last 10 years, I think this Xavier Almeida and company, who are, you know, trying to revive that farming legacy of Talegaon a little bit. So they stopped these trucks from dumping mud into low-lying paddy fields, where I believe they are building a new Panchayat Ghar. I don't know why Talegaon requires another Panchayat Ghar when they have this huge community hall where the Panchayat is located right now.
Totally.
So 6,000 square meters of paddy field is going to be converted into a Panchayat Ghar. So these guys stopped them the other day because the truck driver didn't have the correct licenses.
The story I saw today talked about them, the people who filed the complaint and stopped the trucks, the police taking action against them rather than the people who were dumping the mud. And they said that you are stopping a project that has all the permissions etc. from going ahead. So on that very sort of negative note, so to say, we have to end the program. Thank you very much for watching, and do join us next week.